Praise the Lord. Okay, so I'm going to say a little bit more about kind of our story later on in the training, but since Matt and Danielle brought up City Team, that was an organization that's brought this disciple-making thing to Wisconsin. Well, we actually invited them to come. We did a conference down at Green Lake Conference Center. In my own story, that was like the pieces of the puzzle that were missing. You know, I had been on this discipleship track for quite a few years, maybe decades, and it was like I just couldn't quite, get a handle on it. And I knew, like Debbie, like you said, we are supposed to be disciples who make disciples. We're supposed to, this stuff's supposed to be evident in our lives. And I had that same thing, and I was chasing it, but I couldn't quite get it. And so meeting up with City Team and going through their training, it was like, oh, all the stuff, that I was missing, it like all came together. So the training that I'm doing now is really a conglomeration of years of study, lots of books read, and what I learned through City Team and some of the people I met through City Team. They now call themselves New Generations, which, because they believe that believers should be having babies, so new generations of believers who, disciples make disciples make disciples. And really what I want to say, this whole training, the purpose of this training is to help us all understand Jesus' training program to disciple the nations. If you think about it, Jesus took just unschooled, ordinary people and he put them through the paces. He put them through a process. And at the end of that process, they were equipped to go and disciple the nations. He knew he was going to give them that command, but they did not know that. So that's what this is. Sometimes people call it doing Jesus work, Jesus way, yields Jesus results, that kind of a thing. So we're going to start out by looking at a miracle that Jesus did, and you all know this story, but I want to look at it and I want to read it. So I need a volunteer to read Luke chapter 5, verses 1 through 11. Yeah, go ahead and whoever would like to read that. And I've got a microphone ready for whoever's. All right. Okay. Yeah, I always say somebody who loves Jesus. Luke 5. 1 through 11. There it is. All right. Okay, yeah, go ahead.
First disciples, Luke chapter 5, 1 through 11. As the crowd was pressing in on Jesus to hear God's word, he was standing by Lake Gennesaret. He saw 2 boats at the edge of the lake. The fishermen had left them and were washing their nets. He got into one of the boats, which belonged to Simon, and asked him to put out a little from the land. Then he sat down and was teaching the crowds from the boat. When he had finished speaking, he said to Simon, "Put out into deep water and let down your nets for a catch." "Master," Simon replied, "we've worked hard all night long and caught nothing, but if you say so, I'll let down the nets." When they did this, they caught a great number of fish, and their nets began to tear. So they signaled to their partners in the other boat to come and help them. They came and filled both boats so full that they began to sink. When Simon Peter saw this, he fell at Jesus' knees and said, "Go away from me, because I am a sinful man, Lord." For he and all those with him were amazed at the catch of fish they had taken, and so were James and John, Zebedee's sons, who were Simon's partners. "Don't be afraid," Jesus told Simon. "From now on you will be catching people." Then they brought the boats to land, left everything, and followed him.
Awesome, thank you. Yeah, if you can just turn it off, just hold that button, it'll turn off, and then leave it. Yep, perfect. Thank you, Jerome. So you've all heard that story before, right? So Jesus gets into the boat and does his teaching, and then when he finishes teaching, he asks Simon to push out into deep water to let down the nets for a catch. Now, they usually fish at night, because the fish tend to come up, and in the middle of the day, there's usually not a lot of fish in the deep water. Have you ever gone fishing? You go out into like 20, 30 feet of water. You're not going to catch fish right up near the surface because they're hanging out near some structure, or during the day, they just go down into deep water to get away from the sun. Just kind of like how we look for shade, So Peter puts up a little resistance, doesn't he? He says, well, Master, I worked hard all night. I didn't catch anything. And now you want me to, this is me, paraphrasing, but now you want me to push out in deep water in the middle of the day, let down my net, which is already washed and clean and ready for tonight's fishing. Peter goes, okay, not because I want to, not because I think I'm going to catch any fish, but because you told me to, my rabbi, my master told me to, I'm going to let down the net. And of course, he lets down the net. They catch so many fish that their boat can't hold them all. They have to call their partners over, and their partners come over, and they fill both boats. It says, right? They fill both boats to the point where they're almost sinking, and it does not say that the net was ever empty. So in my mind, I picture two boats so full of fish that the water's just about to lap into the boat, which of course then the fish would get away. They can't let that happen. And they pull everything up on shore. Now, that's probably the greatest catch of their lives. Would you agree? Yeah. And if you're a commercial fisherman, how do you get money to say fix your house, or buy your wife a new dress, or fix the car? Where does the money come from if you're a commercial fisherman? That's right. You sell your fish to get the money to do the things that you can't do with fish, right? You can't fix the roof with a fish. You need to sell the fish, get money right? So these guys may have been thinking that this is like hitting the lottery, right? Oh my gosh, the greatest catch of our lives. It's fantastic. So all the things, like if you won the lottery, you have a list already probably of the things you would do with all that money. And so they were probably thinking like that. Wow, we're going to do all this and that with the money. But then Jesus doesn't let them sell the fish, does he? It says at the end there that Jesus walked away. It says that they followed him. So that means that he walked away. It said they left everything. They left that catch and they followed him. And that was forcing a decision. He was forcing them to make a decision. Either stay with the fish, stay with the greatest catch of your life, or follow the one who gave you the greatest catch of your life. Which makes me wonder. To me, it kind of begs the question, why do you think Jesus did that miracle? Because he said, from now on you will catch what? Men. Yeah. Do you think the miracle was the backdrop for that statement? You think it's possible that Jesus wanted them to see, after fishing all night and catching nothing, right? Imagine if Jesus would have, at that, after Peter caught nothing, if Jesus would have said, hey, follow me, let's go catch people. Okay, maybe. But the backdrop for the statement, let's go catch people, is thousands and thousands of fish flopping around in the boat and on the shore, in the boats and in the net. And so I believe that Jesus was saying, let's go do that with people. Or, okay, let's go catch people like that. Right? The nets aren't empty. Jesus is the one who put the fish in the net. And I'm going to try to prove this to you over the next tonight and the next 2 days. Think about this. When you catch fish with a net, have any of you ever caught fish with a net? Anybody ever? Yeah. Okay. And when you catch fish with a net, how many do you catch at a time? A lot. Yep.
That's the plan.
That's the plan. Yeah. Oh, sure. Yeah. Yep. I used to have a net for catching minnows, and it was a sand-colored net. You'd lay it on the bottom of the water, and then you wait for a school of minnows to swim over it, and you just lift the thing, and it would come up around them. And I'd catch 100 at a time. How many of you have ever fished with a hook? Okay. Yep. So when you fish with a hook, how many do you catch at a time? One at a time. And when you fish with a hook, do you know if the fish was hungry or not? You don't? Well, if you fish with a hook, didn't the fish bite the hook because it was hungry? You put some food on the hook, it was right? You kind of playing a practical joke on the fish? Well, that's true. If there's no bait on the hook, the fish isn't even going to bite the hook. But if there's bait on the hook, then the fish bites the hook because they're hungry, right? But when you catch fish with a net, do you know if they're even hungry? No, because the net just happens to fall where the fish were, right? So we have a man who works in our ministry in Kenya, and he was the first translator who ever translated this training for me in 2015, first time I ever went to Africa. This guy had been a pastor of a local church for 35 years, and they only had 50 people come in on Sunday morning, and he was frustrated. He was struggling. Nobody had come. They hadn't had any new people in years. And if you talk to him, because he and I sometimes will share the same, speaking platform, he says, I felt like Peter. I felt like I was working hard all night. I was catching nothing. I was preaching my heart out. I was preaching the truth. Nobody was coming. The numbers weren't growing. So he learned this training. He learned how to do, and he would say this to you, he learned how to do Jesus work, Jesus way. He went to his elders and he told his elders what he had learned in this training. His elders said, oh my gosh, why have we never seen that in the Bible? And so he and the elders went to the congregation and they repented. They said, we have not been doing Jesus work, Jesus way. We've been leading you in just the way we were taught, tradition's way, man's way. And so the congregation, of course, received that and forgave them, whatever. And then they trained them how to be disciples who make disciples, how to fish with a net, how to catch people in groups, not just one at a time. And in about a year, that little church of 50 multiplied to 2,500 disciples in more than 100 locations in northwest Kenya. And that was just the translator. There was 50 or 60 elders and bishops and pastors who also went out and put this into practice. But just him went from from 50 to 2,500 in just 1 year. And there was another, and I'll tell you a lot of stories because God has done such amazing things. There was another man who went through our training, young man in his 20s, and he lived over in Kampala, Uganda, which is next to Kenya. And he messaged me at one point and he said, we're gonna go do outreach in a village. And it's a Muslim village. So they're gonna go to this Muslim village, they're gonna do outreach. And they were prayer walking in the village, looking for a person who's looking for God. This young man who had been through our training, he met a man who was dying of AIDS, who had a family of 15. He had 15 children and one wife. He used to have 3 wives. 2 of his wives had died from AIDS, probably because he went out of the marriage into, consorted with a prostitute, got AIDS, brought AIDS into the marriage, and 2 of his wives had died from him. He was actually planning on killing himself in 3 days. And he meets this disciple maker. And the disciple maker sharing the gospel with them, and he says, I don't know, if your Jesus is as wonderful and as powerful as you say, he said, then he should be able to heal me of AIDS. And so the disciple maker put his hands on him and told the AIDS to be gone in Jesus' name. And the man said this, and this is I want you to listen for the net. We're talking about fishing with a net. The man said, if your Jesus heals me of AIDS, then I will follow him, both me and my household, right? So he's the one who's nibbling at the bait on the hook, and the rest of his family, they don't even know this conversation's going on. His wife doesn't know, his children don't know that my dad is promising me, my husband is promising me to serve this other God if he heals him, right? So he goes to the local clinic the next day and has them check his blood, and they take his blood, and they said, his name's Habib. They said, Habib, there's no AIDS in your blood anymore. And Habib is like, I don't know, you guys, your equipment's broken, So he goes to the local hospital and he has them check his blood. And they said, Habib, there's no AIDS in your blood anymore. And he's like, your equipment's broken too. He goes to the main hospital in the main city, in the biggest, best hospital in Kampala, and they take his blood and they said, Habib, I don't know what happened, but you don't have AIDS anymore. And so, long story short, Habib comes to Christ. Habib's family comes to Christ. Habib goes through his Muslim town and knocks on all the doors and tells everybody who knew he had AIDS, knew his wives had died of AIDS, that he's now healed, that Jesus healed him of AIDS. Then he got kicked out of that village, but now he works as a disciple maker trainer in Kampala, Uganda. I've never even met him. I hope to meet him on this next trip. So praise the Lord. But I tell you that story because that's what it looks like, this fishing with a net idea. And it's not just in our ministry. It is the way that this disciple making thing is done. It's the way that Jesus trained his followers to disciple the world. I actually was just listening to a guy from Kenya. He's in the States doing some training, and he's also involved in disciple making. And he said, once you get this, once you really understand this is Jesus' way, he said, it's just a matter of obedience. He goes, you don't stop doing it because you don't like the results. If you're not having good results, well, just ask the Lord. But he said, you do it because it's a matter of obedience. You're supposed to be disciples who make disciples, regardless of what the fruit of that is, right? So, in this little ministry, the fruit has been pretty amazing. Now, before we really get into this whole training, I want to give you a firewall question. Anybody know what a firewall is? Okay. And where is a firewall used? Okay. A firewall is used in your computer. And what's the purpose of the firewall in your computer? So it keeps the bad stuff out and keeps the good stuff in, right? How about in your vehicle? Is there a firewall in your vehicle? Yeah. Yeah, between the engine and the passenger compartment, there's a firewall. And so if an engine fire were to start, it would protect the passengers from that fire, right? So the purpose of a firewall is for protection. And so I tell people this next question I'm going to give to you, it's a firewall question for disciple-making movements. And it's simply this. And so if you're taking notes, write this down. The question is, where do you see that practice in the practices of Jesus or the New Testament church? Where do you see that practice in the practices of Jesus or the New Testament church? Because sometimes we give ourselves the freedom to do things that Jesus doesn't give us the freedom to do. Sometimes we allow ourselves liberties and we find ourselves doing things in the name of Christ or in the name of his church that the early church didn't do and wouldn't do. And if they didn't do it or wouldn't do it, we probably shouldn't be doing it either. Does that make sense? Okay. So, and honestly, that'll be a question it'll keep coming up throughout our whole weekend together. And you'll maybe ask a question or I'll be clarifying something and it'll be like, well, did they do that in the New Testament? Could you see Paul doing that? Could you see Peter doing that? Could you see Jesus doing that? If not, why are we doing it? Right? And so then from there, just want to make sure we get that. Like I said, I'm going to be giving that to you. Or it's going to be coming up over and over again. Now I want to look at another passage of Scripture. This is Mark chapter 2, verse 22. And so I would like someone to volunteer to read that. It's only one verse. Who's feeling led? Okay. There you go. I've got it on for you.
I think if you used a little more emphasis on the word that. Where do you see that?
Yeah.
You just said kind of flat. Where do you
Yeah, that practice. Okay.
So emphasize that word. Where do you see that?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Right. Yeah. So in your notes, John's suggesting, where do you see that practice? Yeah. Make it bold, underline it, make it big. I mean, I'll give you some examples, right? Like there's a denomination in Africa where the way they baptize people is they have them walk under a flag. They have a flag, their denominational flag hanging out, and people walk under the flag, and they're like, now you're baptized. Well, into our denomination, not into Christ, right? So who did that in the Bible? Or there's another denomination that, because John the Baptist said that Jesus will baptize you with the Holy Spirit and with fire. So what they do is they start little bonfires and they have people jump over the bonfire and they say, there, now you've been baptized by fire. And it's like, no, who did that? I mean, right? Nobody did that in the Bible. So but we have got practices in our own church world and religious experiences that are the same kind of thing. So thank you for that, John. Debbie, go.
Mark chapter 2, verse 22. And no man puts new wine into old wineskins, lest the wine burst the wineskins, and the wineskins are destroyed, and the wine is poured out. Rather, they put new wine into new wineskins.
Thank you very much. I just have to. Somehow I made a blank slide. Okay. So how many of you have heard that verse before? Wineskins, new wine. Nobody puts new wine into old wineskins, right? Can anybody explain why that happens? Why does the new wine burst the old wineskin? Anybody know? Okay. Do you want to use the microphone if you're going to do a little teaching on winemaking? Thank you. Is it on? Okay, thanks, Jerome. All right.
The grape juice has bacteria in it, especially things like yeast, and they produce gases that would expand in the new wineskin, and the new wineskin would expand with it. An old wineskin has already been stretched, and it can't manage to stretch anymore, and so the gases burst the old wineskin.
Okay. Good. Thank you very much. So, do you think that the reason Jesus gave this teaching is he wanted to make sure that they knew how to make wine so that they had wine for communion? Or what do you think the purpose of it was? Thanks, Jerome. I appreciate that. He's the microphone manager. So do you think that Jesus is possibly talking about operating systems? Do you think he's possibly talking about what he's bringing? He's bringing a new way of operating, a new thing. And if we operate in the old way, then we're going to have problems. He says, and like Diane said, so you take grape juice, you ferment it, the fermenting process gives off carbon dioxide, which causes pressure, expansion. My dad tried to make wine when I was a kid. Well, he made wine. It just wasn't very good. But he put the grape juice in a bottle. He put some yeast in the bottle. And he put a balloon over the bottle. And I remember as a little kid, the balloon kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger with the expanding of the gas, So the way that they would do it is they would take an actual animal skin, probably a sheep or a goat, because they had a lot of those, and they would sew it all shut, and they would pour the yeast and the grape juice into the animal skin, and then they'd seal it. And then if it was a fresh animal skin, like, freshly killed, then it's flexible and it can stretch, it can expand. If it's been stretched once, it cannot stretch again. Okay, so Jesus comes along and says, nobody puts new wine into old wineskins because if he does, the wineskin's going to burst. And I think this is really important for us to wrap our heads around, both the old wineskin and the new wine, the wine you're trying to make, are going to be ruined. They're both lost. So not only did you wreck your wine you're trying to make, but you also wrecked your container that you could have used for water or, milk or whatever else to hold liquids. And it's the expansion that causes the breakage. It's the pressure. Okay? So as we talk about disciple-making movements, that is what we see, is that there is this outward pressure, this outward expansion, and if we try to bottle it, if we try to force it into a building, I mean, look at this room we're in right here. Let's say that every one of us left tonight and promised to bring one more person tomorrow. We wouldn't fit. We'd already have broken our wineskin. We'd have, right? Our rigid structure that can't stretch would no longer work for us. I was in northern Uganda doing this training, and I was in this little mud-walled, grass-roofed church building, and it was made for 50 people, and it had about 70 people in there. It was just packed. Sardines, there was no room for the kids to crawl around on the floor. And I'm teaching them this, and then there's a point where, and you're going to get to do this tomorrow, there's a point where you practice being the church in a simple, easy to understand way. There wasn't even enough room for me to break them into, if I said break into small groups or turn and face a partner, they couldn't. They were just rammed in there like sardines. So I asked them, I said, if each of you went and brought one person back tomorrow, what would we do? And they kind of looked at each other like, we wouldn't know what to do because we wouldn't be able to fit. We're already too many people for this space. So then I trained them, how to do this, process, but instead of doing it in the church building, I broke them up into groups of 4, and I said, go outside and find a tree and just sit under the tree and do your practice time. Well, I walked outside. This is still on my Instagram. If you go to, I think it's the IDMI, or maybe we changed the name to Go Multiply. But if you go to Instagram, there's a video. There's a group under this tree, and a group under this tree, and a group under this tree. Oh, there's a tree with nobody. There's another group. Then there's a tree with nobody. And it was like they just fanned out across this plain or this grassy area where there was, I think, mango trees everywhere. But there was a bunch of mango trees with nobody even under them. Because we had room for expansion if we expand in the right environment, right? If we expand so that's the difference between the old wineskin is something that's rigid, it's something that does not have the ability to expand, whereas the new wineskin has the ability to expand. And I will submit to you that at least it's my belief, sometimes people give me pushback on this, but it's my belief that the new wine that Jesus was talking about was his followers, the church that he was birthing, the disciples who were going to get a command to go disciple the nations. And the new wine skin, this is again my belief, the new wine skin is the world. I told you about the translator, his name was Samuel, who multiplied from 50 people to 2,500 people in a year. Well, they didn't build buildings for all those people. They just met in existing buildings, or they met under a tree, or they met, people's houses, whatever. They just used places that people already meet in. Because the world can hold all the people in the world with plenty of room left over, right? But if we think that we need to have a rigid structure for every single new disciple to meet in, we'll never, ever get the job done. It's you know what I mean? It's too slow. It's the old wineskin. So people sometimes ask me, well, how do I tell the difference between the new wine and the old wine, the new wineskin and the old wineskin? And I think this works. I tell them, just look at which direction the people are going. Are the people going into a rigid structure, or are the people going out into something that's limitless? All right? Are they going out into the world to be and make disciples, or are they dragging people in to a rigid structure that once you get to its capacity, and you guys know that like in the church, building-based church world, the capacity is about, I don't know if maybe you don't know this, but about 80% of seating space is about all you ever get. And if you start filling it to 80%, then you start thinking, okay, now we got to build a bigger sanctuary or whatever, because you're never going to fill it to 100%. People don't, you always want to have an empty seat between you and the person you don't know and all of that. So just keep that in mind. Which direction are the people going? So in this training, what we want to do is equip you so that you can always be going, so that you can every day, everything you do, that you can find people who are hungry, who are looking for God, and then you can disciple them yourself. And that's a key principle in this, that we are the disciples who receive the command to make disciples.